Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Social Housing Roundtable. Lovely to have you all with us. This is episode 198 or 199, one of the two. I will find out. Massive thank you to you all for joining us this morning, and a massive thank you to True Compliance for sponsoring today's event. And a massive welcome to those who are both new and who've been part of our journey for so long. My name's Baird. I set this up during COVID as a small space for people to come together and just try and share some of their trials, tribulations and challenges they were facing during that wonderful pandemic and everything else that went on with it, and life changing and everything else that happened and the chaos that we all sat through. Fast forward 5 years and here we are, like I said, 198 episodes later, and discussing different themes every single Tuesday at 11 o'clock. So to those who've been with us for the longest time, or as I say, are brand new on the journey, a huge welcome to you today. This whole thing is kept free for you all and free to attend, and it's free to join because of some amazing partners and sponsors that we have. So firstly, day-to-day I work in recruitment. That's what I've been doing for 14 years. I set up on my own nearly 5 years ago. That directly funds and keep this running as available and free for everyone who's able to join. So if you are looking for recruitment support, please reach out. But as I say, there are more than just my recruitment team and work that we do at Avalon that keeps this running. It's also thanks to our fantastic sponsors. So annually, this year, we are sponsored by CMSG and by Alertical. So a huge thank you to those two. But we also have individually sponsored sessions. And I'd say it's great to welcome True Compliance back. To those who were with us, I think it was a year, 18 months ago when we last ran a session. That time has flown by. But it was a brilliant session last time. Our audience has grown since. It's great to see them back with us again. But more importantly, thank you to Alastair Thorpe and to the whole team at True Compliance for sponsoring us and for helping keep us run. So I'm going to pass over to Ollie. Sorry, I'm not going to pass over to Alastair today. He's going to introduce today's session, how today's session came about, where the themes are, and then we're going to bring in as well David Stevens, who's with us from Birmingham City Council, to talk about their journey. And so we have that kind of wonderful miasma today, that wonderful partnership. We've got it from a sector supplier perspective and someone who's working with lots and lots of providers. We've also got it directly from a local authority perspective and how compliance has changed, what's needed to change, and where we've gone on that journey. So without further ado, Alastair, I'll pass over to you. A massive welcome and a massive thank you again.
Great. Thank you very much, Matt, and well done for that. I think from our pre-chat that you got back at 1 a.m. So you're looking great, and that was very good. So welcome, everybody. Thank you again to Matt and the team. Look, we really like supporting this forum. We love the energy, and we think it's great. So thanks for having us back. Last time we were here, we were a little bit focused on the risks and regulation increasing, penalties for housing providers getting more stringent, more attention from the regulator and audits and ombudsman. And, you know, we tried to move that around to a positive, but it was very much sort of anchored in all the risks that are around compliance within the social housing sector and all of the additional things that you guys have to worry about and have done increasingly for the last 10 years or so. So when we were thinking about what we might cover off today, what might be interesting, what might be helpful and suitable, we had a little bit of an epiphany when we were hosting our existing customer event. And we had a talk from one of our customers, Birmingham City Council, and it really was much more valuable to our other customers, and we think perhaps to you guys to hear from a local authority or housing association that is going through the same struggles as you, working with the same problems and opportunities that you have as well. And as such, we're really honoured to have David Stevens joining today. He's going to do the majority of the talk. He may reference True Compliance, and as you can see from my corporate background, I'm from True Compliance. My name's Alastair Thorpe. I'm one of the directors here, and I thought I'd just give you 2 moments to explain who we are for a bit of context. So True Compliance essentially exists to help housing professionals keep residents safe in their homes. It's as simple and as difficult as that. We use cloud-based digital tools to assist compliance teams, mainly property teams, asset teams within the housing sector, to manage their compliance. As we mentioned, compliance as a regulation element is growing. What you need to do is getting bigger, and people checking up on that is happening more often. And so essentially we try to help you and your colleagues with that. We have a platform called True Compliance, and essentially what that does is all of these certificates from your big six compliance like electrical, gas, fire, asbestos, but equally anything Awab's law, damp and mold now. We've actually got just under 200 compliance streams in the system that you can manage through there. What the system is doing is taking all of those certificates and assessments from those different streams, from your external contractors, from your colleagues, from your consultants, and attempting to strip the information off, check it against compliance rules, but also internal process rules. We want to store and analyze that information and make it available to you and your colleagues and your board and your residents in a way that you can understand what the figures are telling you, but also be assured that the information that you're providing is correct. We currently have customers who own and manage over 1 million properties in the UK, and they're all local authorities and housing associations, and some of them are on the call today as well. So hello, nice to see you here. I'm going to pass over to David now, and we thought it best that he tells you about their journey with regards to compliance. And you know, if we get a little shout out, that would be great, David, but no pressure. So I'm going to pass over to David now. Over to you.
Okay, hello everyone. I don't know if someone's got their mic unmuted, but there's a lot of feedback. So if that's you, if you could mute it, that'd be really good. I'm loud enough. I don't need feedback as well. So so that's all really good. So I've come along to share a journey of Birmingham City Council because we use the True Compliance system to help us demonstrate our compliance. And part of what I've been asked to do is come along and share that journey with you guys today. So as I said, my name's Dave Stevens. I am an interim at Birmingham. I'm the interim head of building compliance and people safety. I started my journey at Birmingham, well, just over 2 years ago to go in and do building safety. We quickly learned that, well, we can't do that without compliance. And all of a sudden, that's grown to a whole service that I've put in place that is labelled as building compliance and people safety. So what I'm going to do over the next 20-25 minutes is share that journey with you, and using the slides that I've got here to try and demonstrate that. But firstly, just in case you don't know Birmingham, we're in the West Midlands. Clearly, I'm not a Brummie. I'm from the south of England, but I moved up a few years ago. Our residential stock is just under 38,000 dwellings. We've got 185 high-rise blocks, so we've got 185 HRBs. Medium height-wise, we're quite lucky. We've only got 22. And then we've got low-rise blocks, just over 2,000. And the remainder of our stock is street-based properties, whether that's bungalow, detached, terraced, whatever. One of the challenges for me when I come in was to do building safety, I need to do compliance. And I looked at, we started off with 89 compliance streams. And how do we manage those? And that infographic there just shows you that our biggest challenge is around fire. That tends to be the bigger number. Asbestos is an easy one to crack, if only, but it's the smallest proportion of compliance lines. And that infographic there just shows you the type of PPMs and the statutory obligations we've got around our stock. And because of that volume of stock, not a big challenge. So for me, the first thing to do was to start having a look at that stock. And from a compliance point of view, where we sat. The infographic on the bottom right-hand side there was the compliance dashboard that I was presented when I started back in April 23. So I've been there 2.5 years. Considering I went in for 6 months, I'm not doing too bad. So that was the dashboard I was presented. And I thought, okay, that's not too good, but it's somewhere. But then we started looking at the detail. The numbers behind those.
Quick one. I don't know, David. I don't know if it's my screen. Do you want to go backwards and forward? Go back to the slide again.
That's fixed.
There we go. Yeah, sorry. There we go. Now it's working. The slides are just open.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. No, thanks for that, Matt. Otherwise, I'd be rambling on. No one know what I'm talking about. So, please do that again. So the compliance numbers, in some cases, didn't look too bad. There was more to do. But unfortunately, when we started looking into those numbers, we started challenging them quite hard and fast. The historic stock data wasn't as good as it could have been. The NEC system hadn't been updated for years. It had been put in. No one had done any data cleansing. We disposed of stock we bought on stock. That wasn't reflected in the data. Just a whole lack of quality and governance over certificates coming in. If I said that we had an LGSR certificate and when we looked at it, it was a Chinese takeaway menu, I'm not actually joking. We found quite a lot of lack of quality in relation to our evidence. A lot of that was linked to competency within the workforce. Like many organisations, people had left, knowledge had been lost, processes had just evolved rather than actually being managed. So we found quite a lot of inconsistency around what we was actually reporting, to the point where I quickly went back to the business and said, well, look, I don't trust any of these numbers. Really need to start again. Of course, Birmingham, as I'm sure you've all heard, if you haven't, where have you been, has got quite a few financial challenges. And of course, it's had the regulator for social housing intervene, as well as commissioners as well. So Birmingham's been under the spotlight quite a lot. So that's what I walked into. Welcome. Hello. I've always said I like a challenge. I had one. So straight away, I'm hoping the slides moved on. Yes. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
I tried to map a journey because I had to go to the business and set the scene for what we needed to do. And this slide and the next slide it looks like a bit of a complicated journey, but I'm going to cherry pick certain bits to try and demonstrate that journey we was on. Quite quickly, when I come in, I was faced with a 2.5-year IT program to procure a system that we could get all our stock data and compliance information in. Straight away, that was stopped. That was just stopped. I don't need a SharePoint system. I don't need a filing system. I need a real compliance tool that can help me. And quite amazingly, that was stopped, restarted, and by October of the same year, so within 6 months, our procurement had turned around. We'd gone through a procurement piece, and our compliance system was awarded, our need was awarded to True Compliance, and that's really where our journey started with True Compliance. So 2 years really, we've been working on this. Part of that was for us to start cleansing our data. That hadn't been done for a long time. If your data's wrong, everything's wrong. You can't say you're 100% compliant if you don't know exactly what your compliance requirements are. So we've done a hell of a lot of data cleansing, and we keep doing that. Literally every quarter we're cleansing our data consistently, because that's really, really big. Of course, one of the big things for us to start with was, as Alastair mentioned, you start with a big 6, but actually from a building safety point of view, we also knew that we had secure information box detail that we needed to share with West Midlands Fire Service. We had flat entrance doors. We had sprinklers installed across our blocks. So all of a sudden we had all of that fire biased information that we also needed to focus on, not just the big 6, because West Midlands Fire Service was saying, where is it? Where's the requirements? What have you doing? And let's not forget the requirements under the Fire Safety Act in relation to this other stuff. So all of a sudden our big 6 quite quickly started moving to the 10s. And that's really where we focused. So it would have been lovely to start with big 6, but actually we ended up with a 17 that we started to work on. So that took a lot of engagement from my team and the True Compliance team to actually try and make that work. One of the things that we recognised early on was we needed a method of integrating across to NEC and Northgate, which was obviously the main system that the council used. All our service requests, all our PPM lines were being issued through there. We needed to join that up. So in early 24, we started trying to work on producing an API, and then working with all our suppliers to make sure that what we was doing was smart. It wasn't just people ticking boxes, because we needed to raise remedials from stuff. We needed to understand it. We needed to share it amongst teams. So there was quite a lot of work that was going on in the background to try and sanitize and process, map everything we was doing. The business felt that the best compliance stream it had was around gas, its LGSRs. So early 24, we brought in an external auditor to come and audit that. Birmingham was quite pleased with itself, thinking we're in good order. We wasn't. They identified that. We used that audit report in a positive way to drive all of our other compliance streams. And the main elements was around the quality of our data again, the quality of our processes and competencies. So they was the main big ticket items that come out of that audit. And at the same time, I went back to the business and said, we need to do this differently. We need to put a compliance team in place to drive compliance. We've got a lot of stock. You can't be bolting this onto people's jobs. And fortunately, the business looked at that and decided that that was a good way to go. So we then moved into putting that compliance team in place. I'm hoping that slide's moved forward again. I've sort of moved forward into up until the beginning of this year and through to April.
By going back one and forward again, David, I'm not quite sure. You can kind of see the old one. That's better. Lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So 24 to 26. Lovely. Yeah, we've got it correct.
So again, I've already covered some of this, but again, we got our API working, which meant we could share remedials that was coming in. It's great mapping documents and certificates, but if you can't process what's coming in from them from a remedial point of view, it's all manual. So we spent a lot of time trying to automate that, which we've done quite successfully now. Part of that, as I said before, was mapping all of our processes. True compliance for us now is a massive part of the way we process any information. But again, that whole piece of working with our supply chain has been really big for us. So they're not consistently changing their certificates, their reports. You know, once they're mapped, we need them to stay consistent. That way we can assure quality that's coming in. So it's a really big thing for us around working with our supply chain internally and externally, because ultimately our customers want to see what they need and we need to be able to deliver it consistently. So I think where we are at the moment is from 3 months ago, we started to put our compliance team together. So my team's raised from me +1 when I started in April 23 to a team of 59, of which I think it's 47 now are permanent officers. So that's building, safety, compliance, and the health and safety element, all that sit within the asset management team. So quite a big team, but actually, if you think of our stock, we've got a lot of stock as well to look after. So that's been our journey, and I've whizzed through that really, really quick because I think you can have a look at that afterwards if you wish. But where are we today? And I'm hoping the slides move forward again. Does it move forward, Matt?
Yeah, you're on current position.
We're good.
Okay, so where are we today? Right, okay. So the infographic at the bottom right is actually our compliance position today. Again, that's focusing on the big six. Of course, we know there's a lot more than that. Actually, when I started, I said we had 89 compliance streams. That doesn't include communal doors, flat entrance doors, SIBs, monthly checks, quarterly checks, all of that other stuff. Actually, we're up to about 120 compliance streams that we've got in true compliance. And we've done that in that 2-year period. It's been hard. It's been focused, but we've managed to achieve that. So our compliance data at the moment, that was as of the first thing this morning. And that's all assured quality data. And I'd stand in front of any regulator and defend those numbers. Are they perfect? No, we've still got more to do. We know that, but that's our numbers at the moment. I think what we've got is assured data. All of our data comes from True Compliance. It interacts with NEC. We also interact with Apex as well, which is where our contractors put some of our documentation. But all of the information is pulled out through Power BI. So the information is available across the whole business to every user in Birmingham, every member of staff in Birmingham, not just the True Compliance users. We've got just over 700 users on True Compliance at the moment. We've upskilled and trained a lot of people. Half of that is our supply chain because we expect them to use it as well. We issue remedials to them. They react with those remedials and upload the evidence that we then assure and approve if we're happy with it. So far, we've had just over 250,000 certificates uploaded into TC to support our compliance position. And from that, there's a piece there about remedials. We forget about remedials when we talk about compliance. We say we've got our FRA in place, we've got our EICR in place, etc. But actually, all of those can carry remedials. So there's just two examples there. From our fire risk assessment program, we've raised over 42,000 remedials that have all been processed through TC, and over 1,000 asbestos remedials, including notifiable works. And at the moment, we've got just over 250 certificates that are mapped to allow our supply chain to interact with TC and drop the stuff straight in. So it's nice and efficient way for us. And our compliance managers then do all that assurance. They accept, they reject, they quality assure. They do all of that using TC. So that's our current position. So a much better, reliable, solid position to where we started. As that slide moves on. Okay, so lessons learned on our journey, because I'm conscious of time. I think I'm on time. Lessons learned. It's really important that we do this, because sometimes we plough on regardless, and we've been doing this for 2 years, and we have to take stock and look and learn. And part of that is, and the biggest lesson for us, is the importance of our stock data. You know, the minute we've missed a property and we're saying we're 100% compliant, we're not. So our stock data is key. If that's not right, if the foundation's wrong, every number you rely on is wrong. And who needs an auditor to come in and tell you that your data is rubbish? So the importance of correcting and assuring your stock data is key. There might be some IT guys on the call. Don't be offended with this, but the program of implementing and mobilising TC needs to be driven by the subject matter experts. You know, IT guys are really good at what they do, but actually your gas compliance manager, your fire safety engineers, they're the guys that really know what needs to be in this compliance stream, what we need to drag from those certificates. You know, you drop an LGSR in, yes, if it's compliant, you can tick that box. And actually, there's a lot of other metadata that's sitting behind that, including your carbon monoxide alarms, how many devices you've got in there, you know, and that compliance manager is going to say, that's really good, useful information I can use. So it's not just about getting a valid LGSR into the system. There's a lot more, and those subject matter experts will know that. I know True Compliance are on the call. I'm going to ignore them and say, if you've got True Compliance or you're thinking about it, you've got to make use of the help desk and raising tickets. Sometimes we've sat there scratching our head thinking, how are we going to solve this? What do we do? Why is that not working? Help desk, help desk, help desk. Tickets, tickets, tickets all day long. They're the experts that know how the system works. Use them as a resource because they're there to help you. It's their system after all. They know it better than anyone. We use them quite a lot. On your certification, we're really firm with our supply chain. You know, if we put rubbish in, we're going to get rubbish out. You know, if we're not capturing the right detail for our mapping, if they're handwritten certs and we're accepting them, we've got that's not good to us. So we're quite firm. We want good quality going in, and then we can get good quality information coming out. Obviously, roles and responsibilities. No one can talk about anything to do with compliance unless roles and responsibilities are clear, ownership's clear. By default, your competency's got to be solid. If people are assuring and checking and verifying, they've got to know exactly what they're doing. Otherwise, you're putting rubbish in because you're accepting it. And I think the biggest thing that we've learned is collaborating across all of our internal and our external supply chain. If people buy into it, they love it. It's easy. They haven't got to email you 50 certs. They haven't got a zip file and email you everything. They literally just drop it in. It's good to go. And if we don't like it, they get it back and have to do it again. So, but that whole collaboration thing through the users that we've got has proven to be really efficient for us, and a really good way of working. And everyone gets it. Everyone can see it. It's transparent. we've moved away quite hard and fast from laptops, paper, what's in people's heads, and zip drives. If it's not in TC, we haven't got it. And I think that's where I'll finish. So I'll stop talking now, have a drink of water, and then see if there's any questions. If that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely, and I can see a lot of points kind of that we could talk about for hours in terms of what you shared there. So I really, really appreciate it, David. Thank you. I think it's also worth just mentioning, because I know you didn't mention it there, the size of Birmingham City Council, not just in terms of the stock, but in terms of the business and the breadth and the challenges it might have had over the years in terms of trying to talk remotely, across many businesses as you're doing there. That alone is a huge challenge unto itself. Never mind what you've done with TC. That trying to get that data together was a huge, huge achievement. And I imagine, David, just for you, one of the big challenges you had when you came in was how do we even get people talking to each other in that way in the first place?
Yeah, and I think that was one of our, from a lessons learned point of view, that whole collaboration piece. I think we was really big on breaking down silos. We had capital works teams over there, repairs teams over there, housing management that are on the ground all the time that see all of this. They're all true compliance users now. They can see the whole picture. They know when we do something, it needs to go into one place so that we can share it. And part of that driver for us is around the building safety requirements, that life cycle, that golden thread of information. It's not just about getting the certificates and saying we're compliant.
Alastair, are there any thoughts you'd like to add based on obviously what David shared there? Anything that you kind of, obviously having been on the other side of the table during that transition and that journey?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's always nice to hear that the things that were thought about in a room and a bunch of tech people tried to make happen are sort of happening out there. We see this with new customers that you have to bring people along on a journey. Unfortunately, to coin the phrase that everybody does in these sorts of things, there isn't a silver bullet, and True Compliance isn't the silver bullet. It's a platform that enables you to do the things that you need to if you can align people, and the culture bit is important. I just wanted to highlight the bit that David said about the kind of subject matter expert piece. It is a compliance system built for compliance teams. Of course, we need to be integratable into your housing management system, your asset management system, your job scheduling system, and anything else. But it's there primarily initially for them. David talked about additional users. This was a sort of secondary thought for us, because the business was built by compliance professionals, and then you're like, hold on, we've got to galvanize the neighborhoods team to go out and take a picture of a fire escape that doesn't have any rubbish next to it now, and they've got to do that in a different system, another system, and so we had to create a way that the system goes out and grabs those people and pulls them in when there's something for them to do, and not expect that they're going to come in and check, or if you make it too difficult, it's not going to happen. So it's simplistic, single sign-on, emails to grab people with links back into the system to do things, and make it user-friendly and easy and cloud-based and handheld device compatible to do those things as well.
Thank you very much. Brian, I can see you've got your hand raised. Please come in, and then I'll go to Charlotte.
Alastair's just actually mentioned the area which I was going to question, which is you have all this stock data, but do you have facility within it to be able to inform neighbourhood officers or managers so that they know what they're looking at? And I suppose the biggest variable in all this is having, when it comes to fire safety and issues like that, around the tenants who are in them properties. So if you've got somebody who's disabled, where does that fit in with the compliance side?
Yeah, so I think because we knew from day one, which was just under 10 years ago, that this system is always going to be a specialist bit of software that has to sit in and amongst everything else. We published our APIs, which is how other systems can integrate with the system. They're free to use for our customers, whereas lots of people try and charge extra money for that sort of stuff. We want any useful housing data to be pushed into us if that's what needs to happen, so that someone can come to our system, get the compliance information that they need, but maybe there's some information about extra care needs, or a contact number for a person that needs to be called to gain access, or whatever those things are. So I think the additional thing to say from what I said previously is that the integration piece is really important, and a lot of that information that might be needed can be in our system as well, or the information is taken from us and put into that other system. So we do have lots of clients who work cases in their own systems. We've just sort of generated that requirement to them, and we're waiting for the evidence or the information to come back from that system to close it all down. Then the compliance team have reports that they can use and auditable information, but the users are over doing the things that they need to in their system. So it can work both ways on that front. And
David, I can see you're going to come in on that too.
Yeah, I think because there's a couple of really interesting questions here, Brian. I think we started off using mobile devices, people's smartphones. They didn't render very well, TC on those. We've moved to tablets. All our caretakers have got them now, so actually we can use TC in that on the ground way. Which is really good, because if we're doing a block inspection, straight away you can go and look at the latest FRA and see what remedials are still outstanding. So you can see that as live. I suppose the other point I was going to say is from a more sensitive data point of view, we don't use TC for that. I think that NEC is the dominant data for us for that, because we've got a lot of our supply chain that use TC, and I don't think that would be appropriate for them to be seeing our vulnerable residents in our block. So that's a decision we've made not to share that via TC, but of course our staff can get that through NEC. So hopefully that's answered your questions there, Brian.
And the balance, I think, David, then just on that one, just quick before I bring in Charlotte, was I think so much of it is the right data at the right time for the right people, isn't it? And this isn't, I know True Compliance obviously sponsoring today, but I think for you yourself and when you came in, that was the big overarching theme that you can see both for that was missing in Birmingham City Council and what needed fixing, but also more broadly what you've seen in housing. Because, I mean, David, you're obviously an interim manager and worked in a few different businesses. Is this something you're seeing right across the housing spaces? That one of the biggest issues we've got is that lack of, real clarity for where our data needs to be across the space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not predominantly from the housing sector. I've worked in the private sector for more years through my career, and I think data is everything now. In this day and age, if we can't get our data right, then we're just on the back foot too much. So the investment that we've put in cleansing our data, and that means cleansing the NEC data as well, because that ultimately is the parent data for us. So when we've gone out to do a block inspection and the block was demolished 10 years ago, and we've had to go back and cleanse that data in NEC, because for 10 years we've just had aborted fees from 5 risk assessors telling us that they can't do the FRA. It's been that silly on our journey. So I think the data is key. I can't stress that enough to everyone.
I think sometimes you have to be willing enough to go, look, we've just got this wrong. It's gone wrong, and this is what we're doing about it. Charlotte, good to have you with us today. Do please come in.
Hello.
Case Management Solution Group, or CMSG, are the home of React, the UK's #1 case management system for ASB and community safety. We are delighted to have them as one of our key sponsors for Social Housing Roundtable 2025 into 2026. And with the ASB app now fully integrated to the platform, it allows residents to record, monitor and report issues directly to their case office in live time. What's not to love? CMSG are bringing simplicity back to case management, and I cannot recommend them enough and thank them for all of their support through this period and through the rest of the year. Thank you, CMSG, and do please go check them out on social media and on LinkedIn. Thank you. Alert Call return as one of the keynote sponsors for the Social Housing Roundtable in 2025 into 2026, and we're delighted to have them back. Alert Call help as many people as possible feel safe, connected, and informed by combining ingenious technology and award-winning human contact. As you can see from this touchscreen I've got with me, Alert Call's digital engagement solution helps social landlords proactively know their customers and properties by putting a portable touchscreen in every home, offering a daily property check through the optional OK Each Day service, plus repairs reporting, tenant surveys, and much more. They also provide Beyond Warden Call, an easier, simpler, and lower cost wireless warden call solution with video door entry, dispersed telecare, and smoke alarms. Alert Call work with over 60 housing providers across the UK to enhance two-way engagement between customers and their landlords. In 2022, Alert Call won the Queen's Award for Enterprise and Innovation, and in 2023, Alert Call won Housing Supplier of the Year. We're delighted to have them back with us throughout the course of this year, and please do go check them out on social media and LinkedIn to find out more. Thank you very much, Alert Call, for sponsoring us again.
Thank you for having me. I've got a couple of questions, mostly for David, I guess. And one is just, what do you think are the benefits of having both True Compliance and NEC? Do you find it confuses things? Does it duplicate workload? Is it more complicated for officers, administrators, and workers out in the field? You know, why did you go for both and not one or the other, or stick with NEC?
Wow, I feel like I need an hour to answer that question on its own, right? But I'm going to give it a go. So, but Birmingham's had NEC. I think it bought in NEC 25 years ago, something like that. So it's had it for a long, long time. And of course, NEC is used by many other teams, from a financial, from an HR. Everyone in Birmingham uses and interacts with NEC. I think when I come in, what we needed was 2.5 years ago, I come in to start building a building safety team. Birmingham was massively behind the curve in response to its building safety position. Now, what we needed was a system that we could get up and running really, really quick. When we looked at NEC and the modules that was available, that wasn't the solution. Now, when we bought in TC, we used TC as on a 2-year contract as an interim solution. Okay, so and that allowed us to work with NEC to develop those modules so that we could then use NEC. We have literally just signed a new contract with True Compliance for the next 5 years because we couldn't achieve that in NEC. Is it confusing? No. Because the work we do in TC, because of the APIs we've got, if we need a piece of work done, a repair, a remedial, that's created in TC, let's say from an FRA, there's a remedial that needs doing. Through the API, we push that into NEC. That goes out to the contractor, the caretaker, whatever it is, in the way that they always work. And then when they interact with NEC, the API picks that up and brings it back to TC. So actually, we've built that system around the two systems to avoid that complication and confusion. Does that answer your question?
More or less, yeah. Do you find that they talk to each other easily? True Compliance and NEC, you can put information into one. You're not having to then go and put it into the other. They'll talk to each other quite happily. Yeah,
I think. Okay, systems are systems, aren't they? And APIs are APIs. Okay,
they'll always need help.
Yeah, and it'll run for 3.5 weeks, and then the next day something doesn't run.
Yeah,
right? So everything needs monitoring like that. But on a whole, I think we're in a position now where we are in a relatively stable position of those two systems talking to each other with what we've switched on so far. We've got more to do. We're not pushing everything through the API. We're going to get there. But I think, one step at a time. Once we fix that, then we can load on some more. And True Compliance know we're pretty hard and fast at loading things on because we want it to work really quick. I mean, we've done this really quick. The amount of compliance lines and the size of our stock, we've done this really, really quick. I'm not saying we've broken True Compliance every now and again, but I think we most probably have.
It's stress tested it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's including our own IT team, because let's not cut them out of the loop on this. You know, they're part of this journey as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been, I'm not going to say it's not been challenging, but you know, we've done it but it's been a hard push drive to do it in the time that we've done it in, I think.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I just also just ask for a little bit of advice? You mentioned getting the supply chain on board. Any tips?
Just bring them in the room, talk to them, explain to them what you want to do, listen to their woes, and then say to them, okay, that's fine, but this is how we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm the client. This is what I need from you. Your Chinese takeaway menus have got to stop.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bring biscuits and cakes, and everyone will be happy.
Absolutely.
It's actually a fair point, because we've been aware for many years that essentially when we first go into an organization, as David explained, we're often the bringers of bad news in the first instance, because you load all of your stuff in and you find some problems. So sorry, you've just bought this new system that's going to help you, and we've actually shown you issues to start off with. The good thing is that you get to manage those moving forward in a good way. With the supply chain, it's the same sort of problem. We're just highlighting where they aren't necessarily doing things in the way that you might need them to. There wasn't a way of checking them as thoroughly and digitally in a 100% digital audit on those certificates previously, and so they just need to sort of understand that all of that is being checked now, and that they're being held to account for the things that they've contracted for and that you're paying them for. But yeah, a bit of collaboration on that at the start is usually most helpful.
Thank you very much. Jenny, do come in.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we've got you. Hello.
Oh, good. Okay. I just wanted to comment on that, because I was really, really apprehensive about how TC would go down with our supply chain, and certainly our DLO. But actually, we were really pleasantly surprised when we showed them the system and how simple it was to use in comparison to our other systems. And believe you me, that's not me being paid by Alastair to big up TC, but really and truly, we were really pleasantly surprised how on board they have been. And actually, TC has allowed them to get things right prior to like NIC audits and things happening. So they're really, really on board with it, and they've really taken it as a positive rather than, oh no, another system. So hopefully that gives you a bit of reassurance that it's not as bad as you anticipate.
Just a quick one for Jenny and for David. And David, I see you can dive in that. I mean, my question there is always, whenever someone's trying to introduce a new system, you're evidently going to get pushback, both internally and from external providers and everything else that comes with it. What was it, I guess, that, has it been kind of leadership led? How have you, regardless of the system that it is, how have you ensured that you've kind of got people buying in? Because I mean, one of the things that David that said that I've jotted down that really stood out to me, and Jenny, this by the sounds of it is similar to you, is that actually, if you can just kind of be persistent with it, people have dived in, but you need to have a good product in order to do that. But even still, I've seen great products that people have just gone, I'm not doing it because I don't like it. How have you, I guess, found it your side, Jenny, to get people to really buy in that way?
So in all honesty, so I'm the authorised person for electrical safety, and it's me that's been the project manager of TC. I think because they're hearing it from someone actually on the ground doing the do, rather than it coming from the execs, and there's always that perception of, well, they don't really know what we're doing. They do, but at a different sort of strategic level. So I think me doing it and actually having the meetings with them and sort of going at a more personable approach, i.e., I know this is another system. I know, I understand. I was the same when we took TC on. Oh no, not another system, not another job to do. And actually, I'm like, do you know what? This is saving me so much time. Have a look at it. It's this. And they've been so much more receptive because I guess they're seeing it from someone that's actually doing the do.
David, does that resonate with you as well?
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that. I think because I think it's generating a confidence in the end user, and the end user, if that's a caretaker, the fact that they've got a lot of answers in their pocket that they can check, they can review, they can add a photograph, they can update something, or they can just check the status of something. That generates a lot of confidence because it's the transparency. I think, when you've got a fire risk assessor who 10 of the remedials they're not going to raise because they can check before they go out. Is there any ICR? Are you doing these door checks? Are you doing the fact that they can do all of that before they go out is efficient, because we've now not got to process those remedials. They can check for themselves, and actually they can put a positive statement in. And I think it is that getting that buy-in is about the transparency of what people can see. If a caretaker's looking after that block and a resident says to them, well, when was the last fire risk assessment done? It was done. The caretaker's got the answer in their pocket. And that generates a lot of confidence. And so I think that's been part of our buy-in journey when it comes to that collaboration piece for us.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Jan, I can see you've got your hand raised. Do come in.
Hi. First of all, can you hear me? Excellent. I'm just really pleased with what I've heard this morning, because I was one of the people nearly 10 years ago where the founders of True Compliance came to me, I think one of the first councils to talk about using True Compliance. And its benefits were obvious to me. I have to say they weren't obvious to other people that I was working with, but that's another story. It's really pleasing to see that the system is now working and that the benefits are being seen at all levels. And the point made earlier on about even involving caretakers, I think, is really important, because in the chain of events within housing over the years, caretakers are the last ones to find out anything, because the organisation tends to ignore them, not deliberately, but they because the technology's never been there to share the information. And I just think what I've heard this morning just proves that what I was saying nearly 10 years ago was right, and I just like being proved right. So just well done to True Compliance, and well done to Birmingham for appointing them, and well done to anybody else who's on the call who's using True Compliance, because the benefits are obvious, and I'm pleased that the family has grown.
Alastair, maybe a question aimed at you then. Thank you, Jan, for that. Why do you think there has been that change? Do you think it's been regulatory led? Do you think that people are now actually talking about compliance more than ever? I can see Jan shaking his head. But or do you think that maybe it's just a different wave of housing leader who's come through, who sees things differently? Do we think that maybe society-wise we're more inclined to lead with tech? Again, this isn't necessarily about your specific tech. This is just more in general. What is it you think that people are suddenly more open to conversations around services like yours or others out there, compared to maybe where we were, as Jan mentioned, 10 years ago, when I imagine it was just a lot of it's a no from me?
Yeah, I think it's a huge number of things. There has been more regulations coming and more teeth from the regulator, and so there's been that sort of fear stick bit. But the reality is that I think over the years prior to that, there's been a bit of brain drain from technically minded, technically adept people within compliance teams, moving on, moving out, retiring, etc. So you've got this sort of scenario of more regulation, more paperwork going up. You've got the technical know-how just within the sort of pool of people that you can employ kind of going down a little bit, and then just technology getting better. The fear of not another system is really relatively outdated now. We're still feeling the pain of doing it 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when it was painful, or continuing to do it with older systems for the last 5 or 8 years. But actually, modern technology, cloud-based technology that has open published APIs, there's no reason why you can't have all the information that you need where you need it, use the appropriate interface to do the thing that you need to do, whether that's our system or a different system. And that technology has moved on in the last 5 to 8 years to the point where you can do that. So I think it's a sort of perfect storm, really, of regulation change, bit of brain drain, and then technology moving on.
David, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think for me, I've worked in many sectors, whether it's oil and gas, shipping. I've worked in lots and lots of sectors. I've done it all around the world. So the one consistent for me is things are always changing, whether that's regulatory or not. Things are always changing. Technology is always changing. But what's a consistent is the workload. And that workload seems to be getting harder and harder. And we need to use technology to allow us to process that workload more efficiently. And if we don't, we need massive teams and everyone's going to be stressed out. Everything's manual. It's in people's heads. We've got to move away from that. The world's different now. And I think there's some good tools. And there are good tools out there. I mean, True Compliance is one. Let's not kid ourselves. There's lots of others. There's in whatever we look at, we're talking about statutory compliance here. We could pick anything. There's lots of systems and tools out there that we can use. At Birmingham, we're using True Compliance. We like True Compliance. We've just extended our contract with True Compliance because we think it helps us achieve what we need to. But what will be consistent is the regulations are going to continue to change. We've got Arabs law coming in soon. TSMs are there. Whether we got the regulator for social housing coming in, doing inspection, it doesn't matter what it is. And that's without the HSE and the BSR. It's constantly changing. We know that. But if we're smart enough and we've got efficient tools, we should be able to adapt to that. And I think that's where I think we find ourselves at the moment.
Whilst I've got you in the room, actually, David, it'd be quite interesting. Do you think that there's quite often a narrative that goes round, particularly at housing conferences or when you're with other housing people, that housing is miles behind the private sector? We're really far behind. We're really poor. We're really rubbish. We're 20 years behind where it is. Does that ring true for you? Because some of the points you've raised there is that actually, with the regulatory change and with everything else, everyone's always spinning. There's just a perception, I think, that social housing is so far behind the private sector. Have you found that in your career, having obviously recently been at somewhere that really needed massively pulling up?
So I think that's a really interesting question. I've got to be really careful how I answer that, because some sectors have got a lot more money than the housing sector, and that sets the scene straight away, doesn't it? But is it miles behind? No. I mean, in Birmingham, I'm responsible for looking after all of the housing revenue account stock, that stock list that I gave at the beginning. But Birmingham's got more private stock across the city through private landlords. They haven't all got sprinklers installed in their HRBs. They haven't replaced all of their flat entrance doors in those HRBs. Birmingham has invested in its stock because we need our residents to feel safe in their homes. So I think, and there's lots of, across the whole country, there's lots of other local authorities, housing associations, that are investing in their stock and doing a really good job. There's some private landlords that are doing the same, but there's also, you've got the flip side to that as well. So is one better than the other? I don't know. Maybe you need to speak to someone else, but I don't think that the sector's doing a bad job, but we are challenged with doing it efficiently. If I've got £1 million to spend on stock, I've got to spend that wisely, because once it's gone, it's gone. So I think there is that challenge around budgets, I think.
Really, really interesting. I just think it's an interesting one, because I think sometimes people, the reason we're stuck is because we're miles behind the private sector. Just tends to be this narrative that sometimes come up almost as not an excuse, but just a way to kind of, I guess, go, well, look, we're okay because this is where we are. And actually, as you've mentioned there, it doesn't matter where you are on that journey or how much money you've got. If you're not investing in the right things, or you're not, as you say, Birmingham City Council, half the problem wasn't that there wasn't money there. It was the fact that money being spent maybe hadn't been spent the right way. And you went in and went, we just don't know our stock. We don't know what's going on. And without that, we can never start to move forward. But I think, and it goes back to, I think it was Charlotte's point. I'm sorry if it wasn't Charlotte, who's kind of like, well, the advantage with at least using a system like True Compliance is that it's built around those who are actually using it. And I think so often that's one of the biggest issues I find in any piece of tech and any piece of work that the social housing sector does is, you know, I was on a podcast recently, said, what would be the one thing you'd change? I'd love to see more housing officers on boards. I'd love to see more people who are actually out there working with customers every day, involved in some of the big decisions. I'm not saying they get to decide everything, because a lot of this comes with experience and knowledge, but too often, and you heard, you know, anyone who's ever heard of Amanda speaking from Rochdale Borough Council, Rochdale Borough-wide Housing, about our Bishak and everything that happened up there, she said, our housing officers knew. Our housing officers knew the problems were there. Our exec team weren't listening, and we, you know, they obviously had to change things, and she's come in since and doing an amazing job. That was one of the big things. Whereas, as to David's point earlier, if you've got the data and you've got actually a system there telling you, well, you know what actually needs to be worked on, and you know what needs to be done. And I guess that golden thread means then that at least the regulator knows that you know what you're talking about, which is always useful as well. I'm aware we're moving into kind of the last 2-3 minutes. I can't see any more questions coming up from anybody just yet. I'm just giving it another few seconds, see if anything does come up. No, so I'm going to go to David and Alastair just for kind of final thoughts. I mean, I guess from David, from your side, I wanted to kind of focus on today, which was that golden thread and why compliance is important, and just what you would advise people to start with and where they would start. And Alastair, I'll then go to yourself to kind of go how people can follow up the conversation with you regarding TC and obviously and the conversation today. So David, I'll go to yourself first.
I think I've said it a couple of times. I think for me, it's understanding your data. If your data's wrong, everything's wrong thereafter. You know, if you've missed a block, you haven't got an FRA and asbestos survey and so emergency light, and it just cascades. So I think it's understanding your stock and then getting everyone on the journey. I think, you know, the slides that you guys have seen today, I'm going to say to you, I haven't created them just for today. These have been shared many, many times with many, many teams, suppliers. That's our journey, and people need to join it, because that's the journey we're on. So I think it is that collaboration with people. It is that data cleansing piece, really important. And then you've got the ability, just by doing that, you'll be scrutinizing everything that comes across your desk. And that's the final key, really. And visual leadership. Absolutely.
Well, and that so often has been something I've been shouting about for years. So lovely to say it, David. Alastair, going to you.
Fabulous. Well, I won't say much more other than thank yous to David and yourself, Matt, for the platform. And also, I promise you, I didn't know those nice people that have used True Compliance elsewhere were going to talk today. I promise. But yeah, if you want to follow up with us, my colleague Ollie has put a link in the chat. Hopefully I've said this already in previous talks, but we like talking about compliance and tech and seeing how it can help you. So it doesn't have to be a pressurized conversation about selling you software. So give us a call. And that was it.
Thank you very, very much. That's to anyone listening on the audio recording only, it's truecompliance.co.uk. You'll find the request to call part there. But a massive thank you to True Compliance today. Massive thank you to David for coming on and speaking today. And I think for something that I think, you know, whenever some people engage in compliance, people seem to either love it or hate it. And I think actually this conversation today is that there's a really broad conversation for anybody who's involved in housing to understand how it fits into the bigger piece. And I think we've really got that across today. So thank you. Next week is a very different conversation. We've got Toby Cranebuck and Giles coming along talking about why housing shouldn't invest in EV, which is a very different session. And then we will soon be, I know, a very, very different conversation. And then the week after, we'll be celebrating our 200th episodes with Julie Hayden, who is going to be the next president of the Chartered Institute of Housing, talking about her campaign. So 2 really different sessions coming up. If you're new to our community, a massive welcome to you. Use the same link every week. You're always welcome. But for now, Alastair, True Compliance, a huge thank you to you for sponsoring, and David for sharing your insight. It was brilliant. Thank you very much all. See you all soon and catch you all at a future event. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers. Ta-da. Ta-da.